Hello everyone, my name's Don. I am the laser shop manager at Xerocraft Makerspace in Tucson, Arizona. Today we're going to do a short operations orientation video on our xTool F2 Ultra. It's a great machine. We really thank xTool for providing this for us, and we're having a lot of fun working with it on a regular basis. So for those of you that have seen this before, this is one of my little cards that I use to help you understand the processes for working with our lasers. We're going to walk through this one step at a time, and this will help you get an understanding of how we do this. It's substantially different from the CO2 lasers you may be used to, and but it's got a lot of extra capabilities too. All right, so on our list, the first things we're going to do is get the lens cap. There's a handy thing on the lens cap that says pull down. So you reach up in here, pull on that string, and that will release the lens cap protective that covers the lens. Second item is exhaust on. This is the exhaust control. Hit that button, and you'll see that the light on the exhaust system comes on. You can't see it from where you are, and you'll hear it start. Third item is bed selection. So I'm not doing a cutting project today, so I'm not going to need this bed. I can work straight on the surface of the machine. If I were cutting, I would use this bed, and I would place it so that the fins go back toward the exhaust fan. That's important. So any dust, any debris that comes off of your material goes through that. But we're not cutting today, so I can set this aside for now. That's everything on the first page of our process. Next thing to do is to start with the operations. And for that, we're going to switch over to the software. Here we are in xTool Studio version 1.6.6. That is the current version as of this time. Depending on when you're watching, it may be different. And first thing we'll do is import the art that we're going to use. Real quickly here, I'll show you again. These are the steps on our operations card. Import art, select the mode, choose the material, focusing, measure, reposition the material if necessary, refresh the background if it hasn't automatically, position your art on your material, choose your score, engrave, and cutting settings, power, speed settings, frame the job, and then process it. Easy. Here's our art, and I have a piece of material already placed on the laser bed. That is a black metal business card. So I'm going to come over and check my mode, process on a flat surface. This is the one you're going to use most of the time. We don't have a rotary connected. We don't have a conveyor. You're going to use process on flat surface. Possibly from time to time you might use this curved material setting, or you might use embossment, for instance, if you're doing a coin. But for today, process on flat material is the answer. Next item over here is choosing our material. And you'll see we have all the options down the left-hand side. And we've selected black metal business card. Apply that. And it automatically says, I know that a black metal business card is 0.08 of an inch thick. Well, in our case, we have an additional plate on our board, on our base. And if you see that there's this metal plate here that we've added, so that's not quite going to be accurate. So we're going to go over here, click on our auto measure, and have the machine go out and have a look at it. All right, I'll click on auto measure. The hood, the enclosure on the machine is closed, and it gives you the best measurements that way. It will also refresh the image and tell us how we're placed against our material. I think I'd like to move that down a little bit, and that is the next item on our checklist. So after we focus and measure, we're going to reposition the material if necessary, or reposition the art. In this case, I'm just going to reposition the art. Now, if we were using a highly reflective material, we might choose to reposition that toward the back. What that does is it avoids the laser bouncing directly off that reflective material, say copper, and bouncing straight back up into the laser and possibly damaging the inner workings of the laser. So we're going to avoid that, but on this particular material, the anodized aluminum, there's no real risk. So we've repositioned our art. We can refresh that background just by clicking on the camera over here. We don't need to measure again. We can just click on the camera and that will refresh the background for me. And now that shows me image capture succeeded. It shows me where it's at on the material. This is fairly accurate, but it is not precise. So in order to ensure that you get the right proceedings, we're going to frame the job later. But before we do that, let's go over here and look at our power settings.
On this project, our power settings are all the same for all of the art. You'll see it says multi-selected, and we can look here and see that our art is set to engrave using the MOPA IR laser at the recommended IR reference settings. We also have options to score or engrave if we want to do that. Color engraving is not really appropriate for this material, but it is possible to cut this. We are using the IR reference, although there's also a blue light reference for this, and this is an idea of what the material might look like. This material being the black aluminum cards. Our power is set as such, and our speed there, lines per centimeter, bidirectional, all those sorts of things are all baked into the settings that we get with the IR reference. If you see something that says user defined, it may mean that it doesn't know what your setting should be. This is also another way to overrule the settings. But in this case, there you are with unknown material, for instance. User defined, we can create a grid test and make whatever kind of guesses we need to in order to take and create an initial grid test. But for this material, we know that the metal business card has some presets within xTool Studio, and those are pretty reliable, so we're going to move forward with those. You do see how it reset the size of the thickness of the card, so we're going to focus again and make sure that it focuses on the material at the depth that we have it. At this point, we're ready to start framing, and we can see that our framing settings allow for us to look at a couple of different kinds of framings: a rectangle, or the outline of the object, or a polygon. Depending on the complexity of your graphic, one or the other of these may be more appropriate. You'll find that extremely complex graphics don't work so well with the polygon or the outline. The rectangle might be the best way to preview those. The light power slider shows how much light is shown on the framing when you see it on the screen. Now we're going to click on frame, and you'll see that the button turns a brighter color so that you know you're framing on the machine. Sometimes that takes a few seconds.
So what you're looking at here is the rectangle framing on my object. I can take and adjust that object a little bit if I want it to be a little more in the middle, squared off a little bit differently. Any of those kinds of things I can do right here and now before I start my project. Here we are back in xTool Studio getting ready to record the job. Next thing we'll do is click on Process, and the software will assess how long it's going to take to run this particular job, give us that information, 27 seconds, and then we can click on Start down at the bottom of the screen, and it sends the job over to the laser. Here we are back at the machine. Our project is loaded inside, and the xTool controller has the job and is ready as soon as I touch the big green button. It's now launching the project and beginning the engraving. This is a pretty quick one. Fun fact, if you look at the project through your camera, you'll find that it's actually a little bit clearer than looking at it just with your eyes. So the camera is the tricky way to look inside. Okay, it's shown that it's complete and the project is done. I'll come over here back to my computer and click on Finished. Now I can open up the cover and see that my finished project is in there. At this point, we've completed the project. My job is removed. I'm going to replace the lens cover and put the bed back in place where it normally belongs, power down the machine, turn off the vent control, and everything should be good to go. We can log off the computer and let everything be completed for today.
That's the Xerocraft blue.